everybody, welcome to my channel. So this week I'm going to give you a little talk on some of the things that I do to save money around the garden. Firstly, I'll start with my containers that I use. I don't go out paying big money for containers because they can be very expensive, so I tend to just salvage what I can. I've actually got a container out there that I picked up. A guy was throwing it in the tip while I was there a few years back. I've had it for 6 years now, and it's actually just a polystyrene like square box. So I painted it all up and sealed it and put some drainage holes in the bottom, stood it on some bricks, and 6 years down the line it's still as solid as a rock. It's really been good as that. It's just a polystyrene box. I begged some of the like big drums that the car wash people were using. They get the car wash solution in it. It's great, but it comes in great big drums, and I got one off them and cut it in half to make two like big containers. Then I got another one and cut it in half, and I painted those up, put some drainage holes in the bottom and stood them on some bricks so they could drain quite easily, and away they go. There, I've got plants in there and I've had them for 2 or 3 years, and they're lovely. I just give them a fresh coat of paint every year and they look really nice. Another thing that I do is I collect leaves every autumn out of my garden, out of my neighbour's garden. I wouldn't advise that you collect the leaves from the side of the road, because you don't know if there's any diesel or any chemicals got into the leaves that you're going to be then putting into your garden. It's not going to be very good for your plants. But I collect them and just put them in like a big bin liners. Make sure you put some ventilation holes in the bin bags, like I just prod a load of holes in them, and I just put them right back at shed for a couple of years and let them rot down. And there's so many nutrients in that. Your plants absolutely love it, and it's a good way of, you know, you can either dig it into the ground or mix it in with your compost. It's always a good idea as well to approach, if you've got any local farmers that live nearby. Ask them if they've got any hazel that you can have to make your supports with. You know, I mean, avoid things like willow, because if you put that into the ground, it takes root and then it'll take over your garden. Whereas hazel won't. So hazel is a good thing to use to make supports with for your anything that's going to grow upwards, really, like, you know, your rudder beans or peas, sweet peas, roses. I use them for roses. If you could get any horse manure from any of you know, local farm, anybody that has horses, I mean, that really needs a couple of years to rot down, but your roses absolutely love that if you dig that into the ground. There's a guy that lives over the road from where I work, and he's just cut down loads of trees that he had growing around his house, and he gave me a load of bark, so I gave him some beers for that. So yeah, it's just really asking around and seeing what you can get hold of to put into your garden that's not going to cost you too much out of your pocket. When my children were little, we spent many a summer day sat in the garden in the summer holidays when they were bored, just painting stones. We'd get the paints out, get some stones or bricks, and they would just paint. They'd spend a whole afternoon just painting them, and then as long as you varnish them, so it protects them from the weather, you can get some really lovely designs doing that. I actually got some wine bottles a couple of years ago. I asked my local pub if they could save me some wine bottles, and I made a lovely border, like a feature, with the wine bottles, and put the stones that I painted in front of them on the floor. And it looked really lovely as the sunlight caught the wine bottles. It just looked lovely, but it's not advisable if you're going to have little ones in your garden, really. I always make a nettle feed as well to feed my tomato plants. It's just really easy. It was in one of my other videos that I did earlier on. Just basically collecting your nettles. It's a good way to get rid of your weeds. Just put some water in with them in a bucket, leave it for 2 or 3 weeks till it starts to proper smell really and it goes brown. And then I just transfer this into an old 2-litre milk container, milk bottle that you've had, and I put some holes in the lid of the container, and then you've got it like as a kind of watering can thing to squirt it into your plants. I think if you wanted to buy some plants as well for your garden and you're wanting to go to a garden centre and you don't have a big budget, try and find a local nursery rather than a garden centre. These places are often cheaper to buy your plants because you've not got the big cafes attached to them and everything else that goes in the garden centres. So if you can find a local nursery to you, you will often find your plants are cheaper there. Another good tip is to always look out for those plants that are on a sale rack at the end of the summer. Some of the garden centres and the DIY stores that have garden centres attached usually want to just flog them plants that are just not getting sold. They may be a bit just, you know, they've done the bit basically. As long as they're perennial plants and they will come back year after year, you know, if you get it home and you give it a bit of a prune and put it in some fresh compost and you know, it should be fine. One of the supermarkets that I go to, I won't name any names here, but they always put their plants on a stand outside the shop, and it's particularly in direct sunlight because the front of the shop is actually south facing, so it gets most of the sun most of the day. And the plants, the poor things, they don't water them enough and they just look dehydrated a lot of the time. So I've been known to go in and say, like, you know, you need to get out there and get your plants watered, but could I have some of these plants at a discount because they look really bad, like so. And I've got them at discount price. They've given me them and I've got them home, soaked the roots, changed the compost, given a bit of a prune and tidy up, and a feed, and away you go. So that's another thing to do, is look out for end of season plants that are perennials that you can save a lot of money on. Toilet rolls are another good thing to use if you're growing sunflowers or sweet peas, anything with a long root system. I'm saying they're good to use, they are, because you put them straight into the ground and they will just break down in the ground. But they do tend to, as you're watering them, they do tend to get a bit like fragile, like a bit mushy. This is going to fall to bits. So I tend to pack them together really tightly, so the kind of like if I had one on its own and I kept watering it, it would maybe kind of come to bits a little bit. But I found that if I pack them all together, they support each other. So that's another thing to make use of your toilet roll inners. Don't go putting loads of toilet roll around your sunflowers, but just the inner tubing that comes within the toilet rolls. Use that for your sunflowers, and then you put them straight in the ground. You don't even have to take them out of the toilet roll inner, and that works a treat. If you've got any old clear pop bottles or fresh orange juice bottles that are clear, cut them in half, put your compost in the bottom bit, put some seeds in, and then put the lid on, the top bit, the other bit you've cut in half, and put them on your window ledge. Keep them well watered, make sure you've got some drainage holes in the bottom. And your seeds will come on lovely in there because they're nice and snug and warm. It's like a little greenhouse for them. So that's another good idea that costs nothing. It's like, you know, margarine tubs. As long as you put drainage holes in the bottom, you can put your seeds in there. Anything that you get, like sometimes you get meat in plastic trays. I've used those for planting seeds, for starting my seedlings off as well. I don't see the point in going out and buying plastic trays when you've already got plastic trays with half the food that you buy. It's a good idea to go into your local supermarket, and you know where you buy the fresh cut flowers, and they all come in like black buckets. Well, they're like 2-litre bucket things like that, and I think they just go back with the flowers, or they throw them out. I don't know what to do with them, but I asked if I could have some of those so I could use them as containers for my plants, and they give me them. So that's worth just going in and asking if they've got any spare. As long as you drill some holes in the bottom so you've got some drainage, that's another free container that you can put plants in as well. Another thing I tend to do is, well, I don't tend to do it, I do it. I split a lot of plants every year, back end, when they've sort of done the bit. I go around and I split them, especially my lavender. I'll split one plant into two and then put the other bit into another part of the garden, and the following year I'll do the same thing again, and it just makes that plant, well, it goes on forever, and you just keep splitting it, let it grow, and then the following year split it again. So that's another money saving thing. I do it with hostas as well. I've got them all around the garden, and that all my hostas have got about 9 or 10 of them. They only came from one plant originally. You can't split every single plant, you can't, but a lot of plants I do split. Pallets are so versatile as well. If you get your hands on any pallets for nothing, you can take them to bits. You can make all sorts out of a pallet. I made a strawberry planter a few years back. And I know people make furniture in the garden out of pallets. I've got one at the side of the house at the minute, which I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I have made a container, like a contained area for some of my plants out of one the other week that I painted up. So I'm going to leave that video there for today then, guys. I hope that you found it useful, and I hope that you've got some inspiration from it in some way. If you've got any ideas that you know of that are money saving tips for the garden, let me know. Leave some comments in the box below for me. If you could subscribe, that would be brilliant. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you all next time in my next video. So happy gardening, and I'll see you later.